The 2025 NFL schedule has been released, and we're looking at the San Francisco 49ers schedule. I'm not going to pick winners and losers for each game, but we're going to go through the highlights of the season. But before getting into that, this is a very hard team to preview because we just don't know what they're going to look like until they get on the field. Why do I say that? I say that because last year was an injury-filled year. There, you have so many. I mean, it's just this mass exodus of players and veterans leave and depart in free agency, and you have a new defense that is full of rookies, talented rookies, but totally unproven players. Robert Saleh returns as defensive coordinator. You have a new special teams coach. I don't know. I just don't know about this 49ers team. They could be very good, but they're clearly not what they were a season or two ago. I don't see them being bad, but they could be anywhere from being average to, a good team. A good team, a playoff caliber team. But they're not really a Super Bowl team. Not on paper, they're not. Let's look at this. Let's look at some of these highlights. Week 1 in Seattle. I like this. I don't love divisional games to begin the season. However, I like games in Seattle, and this actually breaks up the streak of primetime games up in Seattle. They're actually going to play a afternoon game. I've wanted some afternoon games in Seattle. And the 49ers have done well recently up in Seattle. And we'll go more in detail as we get closer to the season. We'll do previews. And we'll talk about the rest of the league too. I may talk about a game or two on the schedule here before we wrap up. Up in Seattle, it's a great environment. It's one of the best environments and stadiums in the NFL. What they did up in Seattle is unique, and it's an environment that the 49ers wish they could have at Levi's Stadium, and it feels like a big-time game. The Seahawks, though, I don't exactly understand their strategy in building a football team. I'm not a big Sam Darnold fan. I mean, his talent is undeniable. You know why he was picked so early in the draft. He's got the build, the physical makeup. He's athletic. Cannon arm. He had a very impressive season as a starter in Minnesota last year. But, and it's a big but, he melted down when the pressure was on last year against the Lions. Week 18. He couldn't handle the pressure. And then he looked like a deer in the headlights again against the Rams in the playoffs. Is that who you want to lead your team? And DK Metcalf is not a perfect receiver. I've criticized DK Metcalf in the past, but you have to account for him on the field. They've made personnel changes at receiver. I don't necessarily see them being better now that DK Metcalf is gone. And on defense, they build backwards. They invest in their secondary, and they really believe that you build a defense with a secondary. That's not the philosophy or the strategy shared by the rest of the NFL. It worked with the Legion of Boom. It did. Though I think that was... you're not really going to repeat that. You're not going to do that again. That was a special, special group. And the rules have even changed since then. I mean, it's even that much harder to attempt to play defense and have a dominant secondary. I mean, it's dominant secondary in the NFL. It's almost impossible now, having a shutdown secondary. But I don't really fear anyone on the Seahawks team. I don't. I respect them. They do have a good roster. But where are the big, frightening weapons on offense? And on defense, besides Leonard Williams, who are you scared of that's going to get your quarterback? And no one. So week 1 in Seattle, I feel pretty good about that, but I think it will tell you a lot because they are a good team. They're not a great team. They're a good team. That'll tell you right away and give you a feel for what the 49ers are. Thing is, it's just like the NBA playoffs that we're talking about. With first games, you don't overreact after one game. People and all the networks, with all their over coverage of games, they overreact. You have to give yourself some time. You need a little bit of a sample size, especially in the NFL, especially with personnel changes. Week 2 Saints. This is a game I'm very confident. They could lose the first one in Seattle. It's very possible, but I feel confident. I feel very good about this Week 2 game against the Saints. Week 3, they come home against the Cardinals. In the first 2 weeks, traditionally, those would be very hard road games in Seattle and in New Orleans. Very difficult, loud stadiums to play in. The Saints are a bit of a mess right now, considering the Derek Carr retirement. The 49ers have had some honestly bad games at home in recent memory against the Cardinals. Take the 2020 home opener. That was really bad to start the season. And then last year's disaster. Wow. Yeah, that was a low moment. The Kyler Murray run and losing the Cardinals at home as they did in the white, with the white pants and the white socks. Oh yeah, I meant to say, and I'll bring this up again, will the 49ers actually wear turnbacks in week 1 against the Seahawks? Will they actually wear turnbacks, the white on whites? They love doing it, it's their tradition. But will they do it in a week 1? We'll find out. I'm not going to comment on all these games. But the Cardinals are also a young team. They've drafted fairly well. A lot of people like the draft they had this year. Don't know what we'll get. Don't know how good they'll be until we see them on the field as well. I think there's a lot of question marks with them. The Jaguars is a second home game. They've disappointed the last few years, and Trevor Lawrence hasn't exactly been the quarterback that we thought he would be. He's not a bust, but we were told, at least talent-wise, he was going to be an all-time. He had the talent to be an all-time great quarterback. That hasn't been so. Week 5, Rams. This is a Thursday night football game at Los Angeles. I think that's your biggest challenge in the division. Of course, they won the division last year, and they too have had some changes. The most talented team, a veteran team, well, with at least Matthew Stafford, a quarterback, and I'd say the best coach team in the division with Sean McVay. On the road in Tampa Bay, and again, I'm not picking winners or losers, I'm just making comments. Tampa Bay, again, man, the 49ers have played the Buccaneers a lot over the last several years. Then there's a Sunday night game against the Falcons. NFL's really expecting the Falcons to make a leap forward. I thought of all the games on the schedule, that was not going to be it. I thought if there was going to be a primetime game outside of the division, I thought it would have been the Texans, with DeMeco Ryans. Shanahan, DeMeco Ryans, no. Just a regular Sunday 10 a.m. game, Fox, the following week. And the 49ers, by strength of schedule, have the easiest schedule based on last year's opponent records. Easiest schedule, so we're told. And it does look very light. They had an extremely difficult schedule last year. So it is hard to pick primetime games that aren't divisional games, but Falcons instead of Texans. Okay. Then the road against the New York Giants. Hate playing on that turf in New York, but at least they don't have to do it twice this year. At home against the Rams. On the road against the Cardinals. At home against the Panthers. On the road against the Browns. They have a bye week. Home against the Titans. Road Colts. Which is a Monday Night Football game. If I'm seeing that right. Yeah, Colts on the road is a Monday Night Football game. That's weird. But they have to fill the schedule for Monday night and Monday night games. I mean, it's hard to find good Monday Night Football games. Then a Sunday Night Football. Okay. Yeah, both the Sunday Night Football games are at home, and the Bears are coming back here again for a second straight year. Falcons and Bears. And the 49ers still get Sunday night games because they're the 49ers. Though they missed the playoffs, they're the 49ers. So your legacy team, throw last season out, they have been right there in the conversation and have been in 2 Super Bowls in 19 and 23. So they're still a very relevant, significant team. You look at the roster, there's still a lot of talent. Brock Purdy, I still have great confidence in Brock Purdy. He has something to prove? Yes. Christian McCaffrey, to be honest, I'm not counting on anything from Christian McCaffrey. But he's a big name. Former Offensive Player of the Year. Trent Williams, I don't know how much he has left. But he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. George Kittle's a Hall of Fame tight end. Nick Bosa, former Defensive Player of the Year in his prime. Fred Warner, still the best middle. I think when healthy, he was playing on a bad ankle, a broken ankle all year last year. I think when healthy, the best middle linebacker in football. Probably a Hall of Famer. I mean, I'd consider Kittle and Warner all-time great 49ers. Already. All-time great 49ers. So there's still a lot of talent, and they invested heavy in this defense. And Kyle Shanahan, as much as he's criticized, is a very good head coach. You may agree with that. You may disagree with that. I don't think it's fair to call him a glorified offensive coordinator. I'm not saying he's a great, great head coach. He has struggled in some big games, but you are not a bad head coach if you've reached the Super Bowl twice and 2 of those losses against Patrick Mahomes. And they went down to the end, practically. One was a fourth quarter meltdown. And then the other was an overtime loss. I would not call that an unsuccessful head coach. Okay, well, the last game is a home game against the Seahawks. So they finish, after starting on the road for 2, they finish with 3 out of the last 4 games at home, and they have a late bye. Week 14 bye. It's it looks like a weak schedule. It looks like a very favorable schedule. One they could take advantage of. There's never a dull season in the NFL. There's never a season that you can't find some good games, even when your team's not good. I mean, just take last year. You still had some very memorable games, even from last season. Some very good games, some very bad games. I mean, take the win up in Seattle. That was a good game. Take the game against the Cowboys. I mean, it's always something to celebrate. Beating the Cowboys. And then you had some really bad games, like the losses at home, the game in Buffalo. There's always something to look forward to. And let's just pick out a game or two from the... I'll just talk about 2 games for the regular season. Maybe 3. Is the opener to begin the season, Cowboys and Eagles. Cowboys at Eagles. Usually they pick a team that was in the playoffs to face the Super Bowl champion, the reigning, defending Super Bowl champion. But they made an exception because it's the Cowboys. And everyone's got to see the Cowboys. And I hope the Eagles humiliate the Cowboys to begin the season. I expect a good win for the Eagles. And I hope they just embarrass the Cowboys. I mean, believe me, I don't like the Eagles at all. I find myself rooting against the Eagles in most cases. Not in that game. I will even root for the Packers and the Seahawks against the Cowboys. 49ers rivals. Teams I don't like. Teams I can't stand. Anyone but the Cowboys. And here's another interesting thing on the schedule. The Cowboys have more Sunday night football games than the Eagles. How does that happen? Yeah, the Cowboys, the most important team ever. Week 2 is a rematch. This is the Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Week 2. That's too early. Too early. And then the Sunday, the Thanksgiving. I always want to look at the Thanksgiving games and see, okay, what sucker do they want to put up against the Cowboys? Because, face it, every year it seems, the Cowboys are they're at home, of course, but they're going up against an inferior team at home. Right? One that they will try and make the Cowboys look as good as they possibly can. And many years it seems they still manage to lose. So that it ends up a lot of times being the Giants. Or, well, when the Commanders are supposed to be bad. No, don't put the Commanders on this year. Oh, no. Well, I figured they weren't going to play the Giants. They weren't going to play the Commanders because now they're too good. And they must be due for the Raiders. Well, I was shocked. They did the Chiefs. That is more than I ever would have thought. And growing up, there was a game where the Chiefs went into Dallas and played the Cowboys. It was 1995. But you have the Chiefs, the best team of this past 5 years, 5-6 years. The Chiefs are the best team of this period in history. And they're going to be the favorites going into Dallas. You know what? You're going to get good uniforms, that's for sure. And I'm counting on a Cowboys loss. Though they do pick the Chiefs when it seems like the Chiefs are a little down right now. Yeah, they got to the Super Bowl, but talk about a humbling loss for the Chiefs. People are down on Patrick Mahomes. People are down on Travis Kelce. And the Chiefs aren't what they used to be. I mean, we went from talking about the Chiefs. No, I didn't. But people are talking about, oh yeah, Mahomes, if he wins this past Super Bowl, he's better than Tom Brady. I said nonsense. You know, oh, they're the greatest team ever if they win 3 out of 4. I'm like, or 3-peat, excuse me. If they 3-peat, they'll be the greatest team ever. I didn't feel that way myself. Yeah, I'd say they're an all-time great team. But tell me when they win 4 or 5 Super Bowls, and then we'll have that conversation. But anyway, I applaud the NFL for actually picking some good games on Thanksgiving. And we've seen the Packers and Lions a lot. And it was just 2 seasons ago we saw the Packers at Lions on Thanksgiving. But it is 2 playoff teams from last year. So, thank you for that. And giving us the Chiefs and Cowboys is a game we can actually get excited about. You actually, for those 2 day games, 4 playoff teams. Wow. And to be honest, I don't really pay attention much to the evening playoff games. I mean, Thanksgiving games. I'm sorry, it's so early in the morning. There really should only be two. Two is enough. I've always just said push them back. Push back the games an hour or two. You don't need 3 games on Thanksgiving, but they're giving us 3 games. Well, that's it. I should wrap this up. We can talk a lot more about the schedule another time, but it's one of the biggest days on the NFL calendar, is getting that schedule, and every team has hope at the beginning because we all start at 0-0. No one begins with 1 loss before you start playing. So, 49ers, this looks like a great schedule to turn things around. I got to get that quarterback Brock Purdy signed to his contract extension and try to stay healthy this season.